In fact, you could probably build a lot of these flat shapes in Illustrator too, and then bring them over to Photoshop. But the point is that we can use our brushes now in Photoshop to build value, texture, and just play in between the layers. So I've got my plant, and I'm going to do a little bit of organizing of my layers too. So shape 9 through 14, for example, I know that's all the plants. So I'm going to select those and group and just write plant there. Those are my, or if I could call them leaves, I don't know if those are leaves. And this is pot behind, I'll say, soil and pot. So I'm just kind of trying to keep track of what my layers are, right? I might turn these off for a minute and refer to my original again just to see. There's not a lot of value between the elements. There's some highlights on some of it. I'm also noticing like these cool texture striations that's sort of naturally made in this cactus. So I might play up that. The soil, is a little is soft, and I know it has a texture, so I might play with the texture of the soil. I'm going to turn off my reference and turn my elements back on here, and also use my color palette to guide me. So I am going to play with some brushes on different leaves, and some of these I might even combine together. Let's see, this one is on top of that other one. So underneath that, let's see, and then this one is this one, and this is this one, and this is this one. So these 4, which are these shapes here, I'm going to combine together. And I can select those and then go to my layer choices there, or I right click and say merge shapes. So now those are all one shape together, which I'm hoping to do. This shape I want to combine with this one. So I guess I'm doing a little more organizing here before I add, because I wanted to add some broad strokes of texture and value on them as a whole, without having to do too much on each leaf. And so then there's this one and that one behind, and I'll kind of keep those layered like that. I like that. So I'm going to first add some value onto my bottom layers here. And I'm going to group these together instead of merge them. I'll call this back cactus. I know that this is like the one that is sort of the shapes that are behind. And on top of that, I'm going to make a layer and then go into my brushes. So I'm wanting to create some texture, maybe some value change. I'm going to play a little bit with these special effect brushes that I downloaded by, again, going to get more brushes here in Adobe. And I got these splatter brushes that I really like the texture of, that I've played with before. You're welcome to explore any kind of wet media brush, dry media brush, or other special effect brushes. But I wanted to give this a lot of texture. So I'm also going to choose my color. I'm going to get a color that's a little darker than my darkest element here, because that one is so dark already. I'm going to just take it a little darker, same color hue, same color space, right? So it's still monochromatic. And I'm going to build some darker texture under, like at the base of these. It kind of creates some value change too, but it also creates some texture on this plant. And I kind of just colored over it, right? I just went out of the space and didn't worry. And the reason is because I'm going to add a clipping mask. So I'll call this shadow and light, even though it's sort of like texture 2. And then I'm going to also add a lighter version. So I've got the color picker on the light, same tool, but I'm going to add a few highlights on on my cactus. And then this one I'm gonna have to make it a little bit lighter because it's the same hue. So I can do that. I can just get a little bit of the lighter space. And so in order to follow the shape of the elements of the cactus shape, I'm going to apply a clipping mask. So if I right click on that layer, the shadow and light layer where I put the painting texture, and I say choose create clipping mask, it's going to only show me, right, that texture on the shape of the thing below, which is actually 3 different shapes, right, that I grouped together. So that's why I wanted to group those together. All one fell swoop, I can add some texture to it. And so I'll go up here and I'll do the same thing. So up here I've got this grouping of shapes. I'm going to add a new layer on top. Again, I'll layer it for myself. Shadow and light. If I wanted to play with brushes differently, I can. Like I could work with, you know, like a soft round, and work with these shadows, right? So I could really build like shadow shapes if I wanted to, some sort of smooth shadows. And again, I'm going to make a clipping mask because it only applies onto that space, or the shape that is underneath. I was really wanting to go with my textures, just to make it kind of fun and stylized, but you're welcome to play around with sort of smoother value that you add. So here's that. And then, you know, even like the shadow with texture is cool on top. So because I went so dark back there, I'm going to add a little bit of darkness on some of these up here too. And then again, I'm going to get some highlights on these. And my clipping mask is already applied, so it's kind of cool. I can just put it down and it's only there. All right, and then I have my final bottom shape here, which I might just work with the highlights. So again, I'll make a new layer on top. I'm going to call it shadow and light, just keeping myself organized. I'll go ahead and make it a clipping mask before I even put anything there. I've still got my scatter brush. I'm going to move into my highlights right away. I wanted to make that one kind of come forward on that piece. And then I want this one to move back a little bit. And give it a little shadow down here. Maybe I'll even get a little darker, like this depth. Okay. And that's pretty cool for my cactus. Simple shapes, playing with textures. The next thing I might do is go into my soil and do the same thing. So put a new layer on top of the soil, play with some different textures to make it look like a lumpy soil. And then also with my pot, the pot on top, I might create a little shadow. Looks like my shade I'm kind of building on the side here, so I might make a shadow over there for my pot. And then you essentially just kind of keep playing around. You could build out a table, you could build out a rug or a floor, and a whole room. Again, this was my example. For the background, I just used the polygonal lasso fill to grab a big shape and fill it with a color. And then I did the same for that, and then I just created another layer underneath that is the floor. And again, that's like in a monochromatic color scheme, so using this sort of mauve color and a highlight of that and a shade of that to create that space. So simple and fun to play with those textures.